Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So, because I have heard how bad the plot was for this musical, that's why I avoided it for so many years and I just assumed I was going to hate it. I didn't. Instead, I just felt really bored. Actually, by the end of this, I was hoping okay, can it just end already? And then when I got to the ending, which is supposed to be like dramatic and stuff, I felt emotionally like nothing. I sat there and just watched it and I felt like nothing. Like right before that, I'd been kind of a little annoyed. Like I knew what the ending was, that Christine ends up getting shot and dies, but it played out in such like a stupider way than I assumed it would. So then when the actual ending happened, she like slowly died or whatever, I felt like nothing. So different reaction to this than I assumed I would have, but still a negative one is the way to put it. The two things I will sort of praise it for, I guess, is like the songs themselves. I didn't know what to expect from them with this. There's like four that I thought were all right. There was like two I actually really liked. Everything else was just kind of forgettable, honestly. I think what kills me music wise with this is like, and you'll hear me talk about it on my notes. Also, my phone's at like 13%, so my phone might like die once I'm like talking and going on my notes. Like with like I'm not someone that knows like music theory or anything. Like I sort of know how to play the piano. I took show choir when I was younger, but that's kind of about it. So I know I don't get like technical terms of things right, or sometimes like musically know how to explain myself for these like musical videos. Anyway, because like the melodies and stuff with the original like Phantom of the Opera musical, they're interesting because it's like they're complicated. There's a lot of tension. You got the stuff with like the organs. It like keeps you on the edge of your seat and stuff, because there's all these scary situations happening. There's like a murder. It feels kind of dark, and then here with the music, like both lyrically and like just the melodies of things and stuff, like there isn't really any like key changes. It just feels very boring and simple. I actually don't really like a lot of the lyrics in these songs. They either feel too repetitive or they're just not really like anything. Yeah, and the thing is that a lot of the music in this feels like there's so many of these like really slow ballads that they all just kind of start to blend with each other. I mean, I like slow dramatic songs and stuff, but usually like when I'm watching musicals, there's maybe like a couple of those or whatever, maybe like two at most. Usually that's the kind of thing you'd have for like a romantic scene or whatever. The two of those with Phantom of the Opera being like Music of the Night and All I Ask of You, with All I Ask of You being the main romantic one, between Christine and Raoul. But here there's like 4 or 5 of these like slow romantic ballads that are about love and stuff, but they all sound so gloomy and similar, and it's kind of a shame because they're being sung really well, and the instruments, they're like in this musical as a whole are like different from the Phantom of the Opera. Like I mentioned, there's no like organ or anything that like plays it. I think that's part of what throws me off, is like the organ is such an iconic instrument in the soundtrack for like the original musical. It's mostly like very heavy on strings and stuff. Like there's like a lot of violin in these, and it sounds kind of like gloomy and sad. And then the rest of the music is more of like kind of circusy and stuff, which fits the Coney Island setting for this. And it's a bummer because like instrumentally the songs sound, a lot of them sound beautiful and stuff. Like the main theme for this musical that gets played over and over again is like one of those like instrumentals you hear throughout it, is called is this like big romantic song for the Phantom and Christine called Underneath the Moonless Sky. And like the instrumental like introduction of it before they sing is like absolutely gorgeous and stuff, and there's little moments like that where it sounds really nice, but then it's like the songs themselves once they start singing just kind of suck. Like even with that one, I originally, my opinion of that song even changed as I was watching the musical, which felt kind of weird, where at first I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, it's like this very dramatic song and whatever, and then I kept hearing it like over and over again throughout the musical, so then by the end I was just really sick of it. I'm like, I don't want to hear this song anymore. I do still love the intro of it though. It's like a weird song in general, I'll talk about it later, but yeah, I'm like mixed on the songs, where the ones that I liked, you know, I like really liked, but it was maybe like two that I really liked. One of them was just even in a completely different genre, and lyrically it's kind of weird. And then the other was actually a song of between Raoul and the Phantom, of like all people, and then the rest, like I was so excited to hear like, oh yeah, Christine and the Phantom get more songs together and they get duets and stuff, and I was excited to watch this because with the original London cast, it's like the same actors playing Christine and the Phantom that were in that like 25th anniversary version I had made that like really long video about, and I liked them both and how they sounded together, and I was like, cool, I'm so excited to like hear and see them with this. And I did find a recording of them, except it wasn't really at like a super great quality visually or audio wise. Like I could hear them and stuff, but it ended up with the problem where I couldn't really make out all of the lyrics a lot of the time, even when they were singing like really loud and like belting it out at full volume. I mean, the nice thing is, because it's like the original London cast and stuff, there's like a cast recording, you know, you can listen to, which I did listen to sometimes as I was like watching. Like I'd pause and I'd listen. I think I did that for like 2 songs, so that helped, because then I could like still, that's like probably the way I'm going to be experiencing this, you know, of listening to it, where it's those same voices but like I can actually like clearly understand what they're saying. So lyrically, if I sound kind of confused talking about some of the songs, it's because I could not make out all of the words. But that also meant that things looked kind of blurry, and I couldn't really make out their faces either, which was a bummer, because you know, I kept constantly praising like body language, facial expressions and stuff while I was watching that 25th anniversary film and stuff, but then with this, it's like it was harder for me to see their faces. So maybe they were acting more than I thought they would, but from what I noticed, it wasn't nearly to the amount as in the 25th anniversary thing, which was like a huge bummer, because that's part of the reason I loved the specific actors playing those 2 characters and was excited to see them again, where they just, you know, not just vocally and stuff, like their vocals here are like fantastic and stuff, but like acting wise and facial expression wise and stuff, it's like not even close to how it was in the other one. And I'm just like, damn, not that they're like completely stone-faced or anything. If anything, their expressions are just kind of more, you know, like normal, I guess. But with the way it was, especially with Christine in the 25th anniversary thing, it's like you can see like every micro expression and stuff, and just really sold me on the character and everything. And there just isn't really any of that here, except like during like one song, like the titular like Love Never Dies song, but other than that, I did not really notice it. And I was just like, dang, because it made me just a bit less interested in the characters. Okay, I think I can go on my notes now. I also have to change things with my notes as I'm talking, because like some of them where I'm like, yeah, this song was all right, and then I'd like change my mind about the songs as I was listening. I think just the main thing I have a problem with in this is the plot. You'll hear me talk about it. Let's see. But yeah, a lot of the songs, they're beautiful, but I'm just unimpressed. Oh, that's the other thing too, like comparing them to Phantom of the Opera. Like with Phantom of the Opera, it's like I know like the lyrics to like a lot of those songs, and I've listened to them like a billion times, and I'm like still blown away every single time. Not for like every single song, but even when I watched, you know, the 25th anniversary thing, like literally back to back, like 2 days in a row, I was still like just as enjoying it as much as the first time and everything, you know. And then here it's like I didn't really know how I felt about a lot of the songs. I feel it was Phantom of the Opera, I was like hooked immediately. And then here it's like I feel like I need to listen to the songs again, not just so that I can understand what they're actually saying, but just to actually get a full like opinion on them to see if I like them. And that, I mean, sometimes it is kind of like that when I watch musicals or listen to them, but it's usually only like that for a couple of songs. Usually I can tell like, okay, do I like the score or not? So that feels a bit concerning. They just like they can be pretty and stuff and whatever here, they just don't feel like something that would be in the Phantom of the Opera. Like if I had listened to this, you know, like without if I was like listening to this score on like Spotify and you had it with like different actors so I wouldn't recognize their voices and stuff, I wouldn't have guessed that it would have been music that would have been from like the Phantom of the Opera series or anything. I would have just guessed it was like these like generic ballads from like whatever, you know. And that feels kind of sad, especially because, you know, they're both written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, so that feels a bit disappointing. What else did I write? I'm bummed that since, yeah, Christine the Phantom, they get so many songs together, and it's the actors that I liked, but it just doesn't feel like the characters vocally, like, of course they're good, but without the more, like, emotional style of songs and stuff, like, from the original, I just did not feel wowed. And it's, like, nothing against their performances, it's more of just, like, they're making the best of the material they have, but the material isn't good, so I'm just kind of, like, there. Let's see. I was kind of interested in the plot, at least a little bit in the beginning. Like I didn't really know everything about it. I just knew that, like, before I watched this, that, like, Madame Giry and Meg were the villains, and that Christine, the whole thing feels like some kind of weird fanfic where, like, Christine picks the Phantom over Raoul or whatever, which I feel kind of bad with because I was almost hoping for that in a way when I was watching the Phantom of the Opera the other day, and with those performances that I loved and whatever, where I was like, dang, I wouldn't mind them getting together, but, you know, I'm glad they don't because they're not good together. The Phantom isn't good as like an actual love interest. I love the ending of like he lets her go and they'll never see each other again, even though that's like completely ruined here. So then even though in that sense it's like I almost want them to be together, having them actually be together here and the way it happened and stuff, I didn't like it, and I didn't want them to get together. It felt really weird. Anyway, but yeah, the plot starts with, like, I thought it was a group of kids. The Phantom, there's not that many new characters in this, but it feels that way because, like, all of the original characters or from the previous musical, like Christine and the Girys and Raoul, have like such completely different personalities, or I guess mostly everyone except Christine the Phantom, actually, that they just feel like different characters. Like, I feel like the Girys should have just been replaced by new characters taking those roles, and I feel like I would have liked it better. It just feels really weird that specifically like Madame Giry and Meg, and they're suddenly like the villains and stuff. Like, they have reasons for it. It's mostly because it's like the Phantom's fault for some things, but it just feels really weird. There are like a couple of new characters. There's like these three like goons that the Phantom has that are described as also being like circus freaks or whatever. They're not really important to the story. They don't get character development. They don't really do anything. They kind of just follow the Phantom's orders. They don't even feel like menacing or anything, and they're like in the musical for like the beginning, and they pop up a little bit in the middle, and then they're just gone pretty much. Like they get like one song and that's it. I don't even remember their names. I actually thought, because some of them are like, one of them is like really high pitched, that they were a group of kids. I wrote in my notes, a bunch of kids threatened Madame Giry about being freaks in Coney Island or whatever, but they're not kids, they're adults. And then there's like one other new character, and that's kind of about it, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Most of my notes are actually about the songs. I have them, I actually was reading through Wikipedia as I was watching the musical because I was trying to figure out what was going on with the plot. So luckily I have the list of like the song titles up. Like there's like this Coney Island Waltz one. I like the instruments for a lot. They sound dreamlike and with all the strings. Speaking of instruments, I feel like I don't know what my final opinion of a lot of these songs will be once I listen to them again and give them a lot of them another shot. I will say, if I had a version of this like soundtrack but only with the instrumentals without the vocals, I feel like it would be like a different listening experience, but also really nice. Again, it's like no hate to the vocals or anything, but the instrumentals are so pretty, and I feel like they could work as like their own pieces and stuff. Anyway, the Coney Island Waltz, I liked the like dream-like sound of that. It's just really pretty. And there's like a couple of stage things that are cool. Like there's a rotating stage which works kind of nice for some scenes. There's like this whole dream sequence that Madame Giry has where all of these like circus performers show up and they're being circled around the stage. There's even this guy that has these like fire sticks and stuff while this like Coney Island Waltz music plays, and that part was actually really cool. That got me excited about like the effects and stuff, but there weren't really any like cool effects and things after that, where they even have this illusion of like things changing in the background and whatever. It's like a cool section actually. I forgot about that. And there's even people that are swinging in the air doing like tricks and whatever. It's pretty neat. It's not really plot important for anything. I still don't really understand why it's there, but it's there, I guess. And it takes like 10 minutes for anyone to actually speak in this, which I find kind of funny. So then it starts off with Meg. We find out, because there's supposed to be a 10-year time gap in this between the ends of the Phantom of the Opera, you know, when the Phantom escapes and stuff, and then when this one starts, which is really weird because the age of a character is supposed to time with that, but the character should realistically be 9 and not 10, and it's really distracting. Okay, but we find out because Meg went from being like a background character in Phantom of the Opera to, I mean, she doesn't start off as the villain immediately in this. It's actually mostly just kind of at the end. But here she's already like a main character and everything, but she still feels like she's part of some kind of B plot. I don't know. I don't even know what the A plot of this really is, to be honest, but I'll get to that later. So we find out that Meg works at the circus. It's that her and her mom work for this guy named Mr. Y, who's actually the Phantom, and he's revealed to be Mr. Y really quick. It's not even like a plot twist thing or anything. There's this catchy song with her and some of the other people. Yeah, I think it's called Only for You. It kind of reminded me of the style of songs from like the Raggedy Ann musical, so I thought that was nice, and now I kind of want to watch that because that's a musical that's like way better than this one. But it's like kind of a fun group song. I love that they all dance like it's some kind of like big Broadway number. And then I think during that No, there's a song called 10 Long Years, actually, where Meg and her mom, they sing this like ballad about the Phantom or whatever. I don't remember how that sounded, but in my notes I wrote that it sounded pretty. I don't know if that's true or not. Because Meg's whole thing in this is like she wants the Phantom to notice her. It was kind of confusing if it was confirmed or not, if she's like actually in love with him, because Meg and Madame Giry's whole thing is that they, after the ending of, you know, the Phantom of the Opera, where the Phantom escapes and the mob is like chasing him down, supposedly with this it's that Madame Giry and Meg helped him escape the mob and they smuggled him to America and they've been working for him, but they're really the ones doing anything where they Meg is like the frontliner in the Phantom's shows and stuff. And he writes all this like crappy music for her to sing. The Phantom apparently, when they snuck him into Coney Island, was treated as an oddity again. And then they basically help him work his way to the top. And they put in all this work to like make him a success, so it's kind of like no wonder that they're upset, especially because he mentions to them of like he owes them something, you know, but he kind of never gives in on that. And then it comes to like bite him in the ass at the end, where they get super pissed and things get violent of like, hey, you don't appreciate us or anything, and you never have, and we've like finally realized that now. There's like other reasons, like they even help him with some illegal things, and then at the end it's revealed that Madame Giry, I think, has been like pimping out Meg to like get the money to pay for all the Phantom stuff or whatever, but that's like only revealed, you know, at the end. And then at that point he does apologize to her, or like tries to, like, hey, I'm sorry you had to go through all this stuff, my bad, but doesn't really feel like a real apology or anything. And she kind of figures out at that point, like, yeah, he'll never notice me the same way as like Christine. I feel like with Meg, I mean, again, I don't know if it's supposed to be that she's in love with him or not, but it very much comes off that way. I feel like she's kind of just there just to be like, it's so weird with the original musical too, of like, you know, everyone including Meg is like disgusted and afraid of the Phantom, but then here it's not just like Christine ends up kind of going back to him, but Meg like wants his attention so badly, and like they never had an interaction in the original musical or anything. Like she does kind of try to seem like she's trying to find out who he is or whatever. Like she does find his mask at the end, but they never have like a single conversation, and now it's that she's obsessed with him. And it feels like it's more than just like how, you know, her mom and her feel like they owe him for their work or whatever. It feels like it goes beyond that, of like they're like a little too obsessed with him, where it just feels out of character. You can say out of character for like almost all the characters in this musical, actually. But yeah, her whole thing is she wants him to notice her, and she performs several times throughout this musical of having some of her own numbers. There's this one specific song called Bathing Beauties. I don't like it. Every time it pops up it sounds bad, but I think it's like in universe supposed to sound bad, which is a bummer, because like Meg's other song is the Only for You one, and that one actually sounds good, but that one doesn't really get the reprisal or anything. Oh, and then we find out there's like a lot of weird like plot things in this that like don't really ever become relevant. Like the Phantom, apparently we see him with Christine and we think, oh, like why is Christine here? And it's revealed to be a robot replica of Christine. I mean, it's not like a prop, thankfully. It's the like actress playing her, you know, pretending to be a robot, which doesn't have the ability to speak or anything. But yeah, that's like really creepy. He built an exact robot duplicate, I think referred to as an automaton, of Christine that he lives with, and he dresses up and sort of touches or something. It's kind of weird. And I thought like the robot replica, I thought, oh, that's interesting, maybe that's gonna pop up in the plot, maybe Christine's gonna see that at some point, or someone's gonna see it on accident and be scared of it, or think like that's really weird behavior, Phantom. But no, it's only kind of there at the beginning, and then like one other part where this new characters in the Phantom's like lair or whatever, And he ends, and the Phantom quickly moves the robot out of the way so the person doesn't see it. And that's it. The robot doesn't really mean anything or whatever. And it's just like, oh, okay. I guess it is part of the fact that like the Phantom kind of never gets over Christine. What else? And then there's the Phantom gets his own song, which is called Till I Hear You Sing. And you know what? That one's actually pretty. I know I mentioned there was like 2 songs that I really, really liked. You know what? I'm gonna make that 3. I actually really liked Till I Hear You Sing. I thought it was well performed and stuff. And it feels like the kind of song that would be in like the original musical. I think I like the reprisal of it better later. Like I said, I feel like I have to listen to these again where I can't even remember what I originally thought. I like how the Phantom at the end of originally singing it, he does the reaching out his hand thing on the final note like he does in Music of the Night. That's pretty cool. And then there's a song where Meg like confronts the Phantom or something, and it has this like very bouncy piano, and then Madame Giry gets a part to sing. It might actually be part of the 10 Long Years thing, I don't remember. And then the piano gets like super menacing. I do like that Madame Giry. I guess it kind of fits with like, you know, when I was watching the Phantom musical, I was saying how she's like, compared to the movie, she's like terrifying, and you could somewhat believe like, yeah, maybe she could be an accomplice to the Phantom. And the funny thing is that actually kind of works with how she is here, where her character is kind of, at least vibe wise, doesn't really change in that she's still kind of menacing, but now it's just that she's actually scheming and like actually sort of working for the Phantom, so I guess it kind of ironically fits. But we get her backstory. Yeah, okay, it is the 10 Long Years song actually, where it's the 2 of them singing about what have they been up to the past 10 years. And then as part of, why are my notes kind of weirdly out of, I guess they're a little bit out of order, because part of the Till I Hear You Sing thing, there's this line I like, you know, because he's singing about he's still obsessed with Christine, and there's this line that says, I swore our goodbye meant goodbye, like he didn't mean to see her again, but now he can't stand being without her, and it's this thing of like, he needs to know if their feelings about a certain event that gets talked about later were real or not. But the I swore goodbye meant goodbye kind of did piss me off a little, because it reminded me of like, yeah, the Superior ending where they part ways forever and never see each other again, and he completes his lesson that he learns that is, you know, unlearned here, where he ends up kind of sabotaging some things in order to get Christine to go to Coney Island and stuff. Cool detail. I like that the inside of the Phantom's like hideout or whatever. I keep wanting to like call it a cave or something, or a lair, but it doesn't have. Oh, that's the other thing that throws me off with it. Like it does look like a skull, which is cool. Windows being eyes, and like the tube thing that the robot Christine is stored in looks like a nose. I thought that was a cool detail. There's no candles. I just remembered about that there's no candles in his hideout at all. I don't think there's any candles like anywhere in this. It's disappointing. I think that's part of the reason it feels weird. Like, I know it takes place years later. Okay, maybe they don't need candles anymore, because like when they have that flashback with when they have the flash forward with the old Raoul though, they mention about like the new electric light or whatever, you know, so they wouldn't need cameras then. But they have it where this musical's set in 1907, except the events, the original, were set in 1881, so that doesn't make any sense at all, because the plot hinges on the 10-year gap. It is like the plot does not work otherwise. One of the characters should not exist if that doesn't fit. But yeah, there's no candles or anything. It doesn't even really feel like gothic and dark and spooky. Like, I know they're not in an opera house, I know they're on Coney Island, but carnivals and stuff could be scary. I wish they leaned into like the carnival theme more, or make it a little scary and stuff. I think there's a lot of the bite from the original is just kind of not present in this, and it like bothers me. There's no like gothic vibes, the music doesn't hit as hard, the story, like the themes, the stuff the characters are going through is darker, where Raoul is oh yeah, he is like probably like the biggest character assassination, honestly, where he goes from at least being somewhat nice to full-on alcoholic mess, gambler, causing so many problems for his family, and anyway, and then there's like a months later flash forward and we get to see Raoul. I don't know why they had it where he's like a gambler. Like, it sort of has to do with the plot where him and Christine are in debt, even though she's like a world famous singer, partially also to pay off his debts, and he just kind of doesn't treat her well and everything. I feel like he's only written that way just to make the Phantom seem like a better option. Actually, I feel like everyone is written worse just so that the Phantom seems like a good option in comparison. And also, I forgot to write it in my notes, but this musical completely, there's like one death in this, by the way. It's like a plot important death that happens like literally in the very last scene. But other than that, no one dies. I mean, I get the Phantom is in possibly a healthier mental space now. Sort of. So he isn't killing anyone, but there's not really any deaths in this either. What was I going to say? Oh shoot, I had a point with that of mentioning the the one death thing. I forgot. I don't remember. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, the main important thing with this, no, it's not even. It's important. It like drives the story, but it's not really like the A plot. Is that Christine and Raoul have a son. His name is Gustav, and he's 10, and that's supposed to be important, even though it doesn't make sense. I thought the story was going to be about him, and it sort of is, and it sort of isn't. He feels like a plot device more than a character. He doesn't really grow. Like, he makes some sort, it goes like a little bit at like the very, very end, like the final scene, but not really. Other than that, no, he's kind of just there. He eventually goes missing at one point, and then the climax is about rescuing him, and some other stuff happens, but he's not really like a character or anything. There's a skeleton horse that pulls a carriage at one point. That was pretty cool. I know I sound like so bored doing this, and like for once I kind of am. I got like bored with the plot of this musical, the point where I kept pausing, and then I would go on like Twitter or something and like look at memes and whatever. So I can't even really remember what I wrote. I do like that there's a lot of background music that's like circusy or creepy. Even kind of just creepier than the original, which I think is kind of interesting. But it's also because like the change in the instruments. I do actually like the violins and the amount of strings. It gives more of a gloomy vibe, but there's also just too many of them where, like I said, it like everything kind of blends together after a while. But when it is used, it's like pretty and haunting in its own way and stuff. The Phantom's lackeys I mentioned, I forgot to say that I don't think they really sing well. Their voices are so different from each other that I don't think they sound good together, because they get like a song or two or something. They're not, like I said, they're not really like plot important or anything. I guess it was also good. I mentioned the thing about Madame Giry of like her character, in Phantom of the Opera does sort of kind of work with this musical a little bit. Raoul is kind of the same way, where oh shit. Wait, what just happened? Okay, sorry. I had to put my phone on like low battery mode, and then all the text for the notes just disappeared for a second, and I like panicked. Sorry, I have to like scroll back to it. Because Raoul was like this kind of arrogant and reluctant, arrogant and kind of bitter character, and then after All I Ask of You, I'd said like, oh, he kind of softens a bit, and he eventually does seem to care about Christine, by the end. And then here it's like he doesn't want to go to America with her, and he keeps trying to leave, which ends up being the best option, where he just doesn't ever really talk nicely to her or anything, just kind of treats her badly, doesn't really give like any attention to his son. There's like one song that he has that's like takes place like halfway through the story, where he's like getting drunk in a bar and he sings about how he's not good enough for Christine, and that's sort of character development, but like that's about it. Like he just feels like a different character. Like, even though he mentioned he was sort of like arrogant and a little like, he's the rich guy and whatever in like the Phantom of the Opera, which that's still crazy to me, is like he's this rich guy who's supporting the opera, but then here he's a drunk gambler that has no money and like owes money, like literally the exact opposite. But he wasn't really like rude about it. Like he has this line where he literally refers to like the lower class as like scum or something, and it's just like, what? It's like his character went completely backwards. Like, I know the stuff that him and Christine went through in the original musical was like traumatizing. I'd understand with that sort of maybe leading you to drink or whatever, but I mean, he did end up getting Christine in the end, and I feel like she went through way more shit than he did, and she turned out mostly fine. So I don't know. She's so patient with him as well, and he's just bothered by the existence of her and their son, that I was surprised it's funny, I wrote in my notes, I was like, I'm surprised she hadn't left him, and then 2 songs later they actually addressed exactly that thing. And then there's a song that Christine has with Gustav, called Look With Your Heart. Sorry, reading through the concept album thing is hard because it has all these other little songs that aren't really like songs. They're like barely long or anything. I do like the song Look With Your Heart, actually. I don't know if I love it, but it's like a very sweet song. It's like a gentle lullaby sort of vibe, and it's like a foreshadowing song too, where she's singing to like Gustav. At first I thought it was like trying to get him to ignore how his dad doesn't care about him or anything, like Raoul just ignores him all the time. But I think it's also just for him to remember to like be nice, like don't turn out like him. But it's also like a song to herself, where it's basically hinting that like she regrets her marriage and stuff. And she's so gentle with him too, of like hugging him and kind of like holding his face. Like at least one parent gives him attention. And even though there's like not really anything stressful that happens in this musical, but like it's still busy for her anyway, she kind of the A plot of this musical, or the main plot of it, is basically like Christine, we're kind of going backwards, where she has to like fully choose if she wants Raoul or the Phantom, and it gets resolved like toward the end, but also like really quickly. There's not really any tension with it though. Hold on. But I do like, despite whatever she's doing, which is mostly just spending time with the Phantom, honestly. She at least does check in with Gustav every once in a while. Sometimes he goes missing and she wonders where he is and stuff. So she's at least a good mom to him, let's see. There's this right before the Phantom actually reunites with Christine again. She finds this little music box. Thankfully it's not the monkey, or I would have gotten more emotional about it. It's just this little like piano player on a music box, and it plays this music box version of Music of the Night. I thought it sounded pretty good. And it specifically plays what would be the line for the that is part of Music of the Night. I'm trying to remember if it was from Music of the Night or Stranger Than I Dreamt It. It's the line of I have found you for one purpose and one for alone, and that's what plays on the music box, but without the voice line there. It's kind of cute that like you're assuming the Phantom left that to Christine of like, hey, I'm here, whatever. It's weird having him like he has this big entrance when he finds her and stuff. I'm so used to like with the original musical when like the Phantom would suddenly appear, besides Meg screaming the whole like he's here, the Phantom of the Opera and whatever, and everyone being like freaked out. There's no organs or anything, so you don't have his like little iconic theme that plays every time he enters a room, and it's just like bruh. And here I think that's the other thing that's missing from the tension of this, is I'm so used to like the screaming ballerinas and everyone being afraid of the Phantom, and here it's like no one is afraid of him. He's not really like a threat because he's supposed to be the love interest. I'll explain more about that later. But instead when he appears, I guess because it's supposed to be the start of like a romantic duet, it has the instrumental intro that I said I liked, but that appears when the Phantom appears, and it's just like it's like what? It doesn't feel like a the Phantom is here kind of moment though. It's just like, oh, there he is. It's also kind of funny because he shows up climbing or at the door to her balcony, but the thing is I think she's staying in like a high up building or something. So it's like, did he have to climb up the building to get to her or whatever? It's kind of a cool moment when they're finally reunited though. But yeah, they have their love duet, the main theme, like even though there is a song in this called Love Never Dies, it's like Christine's big song or whatever. The Beneath the Moonless Sky song is like the main theme of this musical pretty much, like musically. And it's kind of funny because it instrumentally and stuff, it's like this beautiful song or whatever, and it's supposed to be like a romance song, and you think, oh cool, we're gonna get like a big one with Christine and the Phantom. It's a song about having a one night stand. Not even kidding. That's like the big reveal with this, is like they have a one night stand, and then you can guess like immediately from there that Gustav is actually the Phantom's son, because it matches up with the 10 years old thing, except freaking not really. It's basically that she supposedly gets like cold feet literally the night before her wedding, and somehow finds the Phantom, and this would have to have been like, before he gets smuggled to America and stuff, so he would have still had to have been in France. So I guess this would have been before Madame, or maybe after Madame Giry and Meg help him escape the mob, but like before they go to America, because they don't say when Christine gets married, so it's not like she immediately runs back into his lair after giving the ring back or anything, thankfully. But yeah, that's crazy to me that like she had left the Phantom for good and stuff, and then she goes with Raoul, she's like made her choice or whatever, and then before marrying him she goes off to find the Phantom, and they like have sex or whatever. And then lyrically and stuff, like instrumentally the song is really pretty and it's like sung well and whatever, but the lyrics are just so goofy because they're just about like, oh, how I loved you and how I touched you and whatever, but it's not sung in this like sweet romantic way. It's like they're shouting at each other and it just feels kind of weird. It just becomes like really loud smut basically, and it's disappointing because like when you hear the instrumental intro you think, man, this sounds so beautiful, this is gonna be like such a nice like romantic duet, and it's like, no. And it's, you know, supposed to be the one that has like all the like sexual tension and stuff, but like it doesn't, despite what they're singing about, it doesn't feel like sexy or anything. And I think they also do that thing where they don't really touch each other, kind of like how Music of the Night was. But, you know, with that one, it was cool because, like, you know, the Phantom's almost afraid to touch her. And it's like that tension where Christine's sort of like hypnotized by him and whatever. Here, it's like they're mostly just on opposite sides of a room where it kind of just almost sounds like they're arguing, but they're not. And they don't kiss or anything. They do almost touch foreheads, so I kind of wish that they did. So it's like a similar sexual tension to that, but like not even as strong. I don't know, it feels like a downer because, you know, with Phantom of the Opera I felt like, you know, with The Point of No Return, that was the big song where they had the most like sexual energy or whatever, even though ironically the Phantom was like under a cloak. And then here it's like they're singing about how they're like longing for each other and about their one night stand and how much they loved each other in that moment, but there's like no sexual energy at all and stuff. And that's kind of when I noticed, like, with Christine, that's the thing that bothered me, especially because it's, like, the same actors and everything, of, like, there's, and I get that this one was made first, maybe that's also part of the reason why this musical, you know, was, I think the performance I watched was from, like, 2010, and the 25th anniversary thing was from 2011, and I know they're playing different versions of the characters, but they don't really emote as much with their faces, so it just kind of loses the drama. Maybe character-wise it sort of works because they're all supposed to be 10 years older, so Christine isn't really like this like innocent young person anymore. She's a mother now, you know, she's married, she's kind of going through these more mature themes, I guess, of like deciding if she really loves the Phantom or not, and regretting not having a life with him or whatever. So I guess she has like a bit more maturity and stuff at her, but still a little disappointing. And I was so hyped for them to have a love duet, like so bad, and that's supposed to be the big one, but it was just like so disappointing. And then right after that they have a song called Once Upon Another Time. I think I didn't really care for it at first, but then it kind of grew on me as it like kept popping up throughout the musical. That one is actually kind of pretty, and I feel like that one works better as like a love duet because it's like very gentle and stuff, of basically how they had the chance to be lovers and now it's too late. There's a harp in there, I forgot about that, and it does feel more like musically complex than Beneath a Moonless Sky. But yeah, it's kind of gentle, soothing. I think what bothered me about it though was like, I'm so used to the Phantom, like with the way the songs are in, you know, Phantom of the Opera, where you're blasting through all these like kind of soft and harsh notes and stuff, that like kind of kept you on your toes. But then here it's like all the notes and the music kind of just sounds the same, of these like slow songs where it's like eventually in the score there is some songs that give that vibe again. You'll hear me talk about it in my notes where I'm like, yeah, that's the Phantom I vocally know, but we're not there yet. But him and Christine do harmonize well still, and that's good. And it's funny because like the one time where the Phantom kind of sounds like himself a bit is when he's talking to Gustav at one point, like right after this scene, but he's singing over the melody of the Stranger Than You Dreamt It, but with different lyrics. Like as soon as he started, I'm like, there it is. And then he threatens to take Christine's son away from her. He makes like a couple bets with people throughout this musical. The first one is with Christine, where he's like threatening her and stuff and saying like, hey, I have a song that I wrote for you that you need to sing, and if you don't sing it, I'm gonna take your son away or whatever. And then if she does sing it, he offers to pay all the debt that Raoul owes. And I like that she actually tries to argue with him and stuff of like, how dare you try to do this to me? Like she actually stands up for herself and like doesn't want to be pushed around anymore. But she does agree, you know, because she doesn't want her son taken away. And then we get introduced to a song called Bathing Beauty. It gets kind of played or performed just like a little bit throughout the musical until it finally happens towards the end where you get like the full number. So I'll just mention about it here. I don't like it. It's probably like my least favorite out of everything. Oh, and then we get one that I do really like, called Dear Old Friend, and it's between Christine, Raoul, Meg, and Madame Giry. They all basically reunite with each other. Despite Meg's feelings later towards Christine in this, and like how I said she's the villain and she shoots Christine later, I do like that when they initially reunite for the first time in 10 years, Meg's actually really happy to see Christine. It's kind of a cute little scene where I'm like, oh yeah, because you know, they were still best friends and stuff. It's like the one time where I feel like, okay, Meg's actually in character and stuff. It's like this little waltz song they sing of like how happy they are to see each other again. They even hug. And they're saying like, wow, you look so good and whatever. I like that it turns darker. Like the parts with Christine and Meg sound nice and happy, and then the song turns darker whenever it's Madame Giry and Raoul singing together because they're talking about like plot important things or whatever. Like it sounds like something that would have been in like the Phantom of the Opera musical and stuff. I actually really like it a lot. And then we get a song called Beautiful, and that one's kind of weird where the Phantom, okay, because the Phantom at that point figures out on his own pretty much that like Gustav is his son. I mean, also because of his age. Like he has this big moment that apparently gets memed to death where he realizes Gustav is 10 and that he hasn't seen Christine in 10 years, and you know that they had a one night stand, and he connects the dots and screams about how Gustav is 10 years old, and it clicks for him of like, oh shit, that's my son. I find it funny that it gets memed a lot. Maybe I didn't listen to the right version of it because the line is sung really loudly and stuff, but it isn't in like a funny way or anything, or like in a ridiculous way. But that is one of the clues, but the main clue apparently is that Gustav supposedly has this amazing, beautiful musical a talent or whatever, where the Phantom says like, oh, he plays just like me and stuff, even though Gustav, okay, he doesn't really play the piano very well. I guess it sort of fits because like in universe the Phantom is said to be like a shitty musician, even though he's always described as a genius. Like people hate his opera and stuff, but sorry, it's midnight now. My phone's at 9%. I'm feeling a bit sleepy. But the fact that the Phantom thinks that, it's so funny to me, you know, that Gustav has this musical ability and stuff, and he treats it as if it's like an inheritable trait, you know, that he could have somehow sexually passed down, and not the other thing, besides that being ridiculous, that Christine is a singer. His mom, Gustav's mom, is a singer, and his grandfather was a violinist. Like, musical talent was already on that side of the family. Why is he treating it as if, like, Christine wouldn't possibly able to contribute that, especially because, she raised him and everything? So, of course, he would have grown up around music and stuff. It's, like, really stupid. It almost feels kind of sexist, actually. It's just really goofy. Okay, and then there's a song called Beauty Underneath. Before I say my opinion on this, I need to like double check what the lyrics of it are, because like the song I thought was about like from what I could hear, because I mentioned like I couldn't really hear things where it's about, I thought it was about like the Phantom and Gustav having similar interests and trying to bond over that. And then I was reading through like YouTube comments about the musical while I was watching it, and people were saying that the lyrics of this one were like really weird to sing to a 10-year-old, and I was confused. But now that I'm looking at the lyrics, okay, yeah, no, this sounds like this sounds like a seduction song. Okay. It does feel kind of weird to sing to a child about staring into the night and feeling and like a hunger that you can't possess and stuff. And also part of the song, Gustav is screaming yes about things the Phantom is like asking him about or whatever. And he's like a little too enthusiastic about, yeah, this is weird. I mean, like, if he was singing this as like a seducing like a legal adult or whatever in like a romantic context, then these words would actually work. If anything, these lyrics almost remind me of like Music of the Night, how that one is about like letting the darkness take you and the power of the music of the night and whatever. And this one kind of has similar themes about how like being dangerous and wild and the beauty underneath like the darkness or whatever, but having it in the context where you're like singing it to a child is like really weird. I see what people mean now, but instrumental wise, if you ignore whatever's happening with like the lyrics and stuff, and just like with the way with it just based on like the vocal performance and the instruments, let's talk about that. Just from that alone, I love this song. Actually, it actually sounds really badass. The thing that's funny to me is that like all of the songs in this musical up till this point are like either like circusy theming or they're sad and haunting. This is a fucking heavy metal song. What is it doing in Phantom of the Opera? It's so funny to me. Like, it doesn't fit with like anything else. It is like the like song that stands out the most compared to everything. And it's weird hearing the Phantom sing for a different genre. The intro of it with the guitars and stuff, the guitar in this in general is like really good. And the actor kind of I mean, he doesn't seem like he changes singing styles either. Like, he still sounds like the Phantom. It's just that like being a little rougher in the vocals to match like with the speed of everything and stuff, which fits. I just seriously never imagined the Phantom singing like heavy metal, but it works. And it like just, again, vocal performance and instruments, not lyric wise, it just is really cool. Actually, if anything, it reminded me of like because he still sounds like the Phantom, of like listening to like metal covers of songs and stuff, of like songs that aren't in that genre, and how cool it would sound. It gives that kind of vibe actually, but it's an official song. And it's just funny to me because like, what do you mean this really cool song, instrument wise and stuff, is stuck being in a bad musical of all of these gloomy ballads that I never would have found out about otherwise. So that is kind of, partially for those reasons, like I think my personal favorite, actually, out of everything, I do want to listen to it again. Oh, okay, yeah, I even wrote in my notes of, like, it feels like it would have worked better if the Phantom sung to someone older, but also vocally so they could keep up, because Gustav's supposed to be a child. I don't know how old, how with children, like with young boys, when they sing, they can, if they're young enough, they can sound, like, high-pitched enough, because their voice hasn't gone through puberty yet, where they can sound like a girl. Like, Gustav sounds like that, which is, good to, like, match with the character or whatever, but at the same time, it means it's such a difference in, like, vocal quality and, like, how high he sings compared to, like, everyone else, that it almost comes off like a little annoying with this song, where the Phantom's going, like, all out on it and stuff, and Gustav's voice sounds so different, it, like, stands out too much. I almost wish Christine was there. You know what? I wish that this song was like the love duet with the Phantom rather than the Underneath a Moonless Sky, especially because with that one they're already shouting at each other anyway. But then to have it here where he's singing this kind of Music of the Night style song, Gustav doesn't have, like, his own verse or anything with this. He just says stuff every once in a while. But I feel like that easily could have been Christine, and they could have had this rock song this metal song together about, like, seduction and stuff. And that could have still fit with the whole thing of, like, them having the one night stand thing. I mean, I don't want those lyrics in this song, but I just mean how that one is also about, like, how at that point they were, like, in love with each other and drawn to each other and stuff, and that could have, like, thematically fit, with this of, like, they still have feelings for each other and stuff. That could have been cool. I feel like it would have worked better with Christine. And then it's a little sad. Then the Phantom is, I think he's just hyped up by the song as well, but he's so excited that, like, Gustav is similar to him of, like, even though they've only been together for, like, 5 minutes, basically, of, like, finding out, like, okay, he can somewhat play the piano, he sort of has interest in the macabre, like me, a little bit, or whatever, and the Phantom thinks that's enough, not only, like, oh, that this is my son, which he doesn't tell Gustav that. The Phantom isn't even, like, 100% sure at that point anyway. He's just speculating. But thinks, like, okay, that's enough. I can show my face to this kid, which is wild to me, because, like, the Phantom's whole thing with, like, the Phantom of the Opera is he views his face as disgusting and stuff, and every time someone took off his wig and mask thing, or even just his regular little mask, he, like, high-pitched scream. And he also had that thing about, like, not being good with touch. Like, I mentioned how that one ends with, like, him getting a hug from Christine. He doesn't know what to do with his hands because he's so touch-starved. He's never been shown an ounce of an affection, and that's why it's such a big moment. And, it's not like he's really interacting with that many people in the 10-year span between this and Phantom of the Opera. I mean, there's Meg and Jiri, but it's not like he's affectionate with them. They're just, like, the people that work for him, or even, like, his goons. It's not like he's, like, romantically close with I don't imagine any of them hugging him. So just the fact that he's, like, ready to take off his own wig, not even just the mask, but, like, the wig too, like, his full face, to show this random kid he met, like, 5 minutes ago. But then also the whole thing was Beneath the Moonless Sky, of, like, how he had this one incredible night with passion, and something with the lyrics that I didn't notice, but it was super funny that, like, other people did with, like, the YouTube comments and stuff, where there's the line about again and again and again, which implied that he's somehow, like, that this man who spent the whole Phantom of the Opera as, like, this touch-starved incel virgin who's never even hugged anyone and is that shocked with a kiss, is somehow like a sex fiend in the bedroom. Like what? It's just so weird. Like, I'd understand, like, it's enough time that passes where I could see it, you know, of like, okay, he's better with people and not as touch starved. But the thing is, it's not like he's close with the people he's interacting with. I feel like it's such a big change with his levels of like physical comfort and stuff. And he seems so like healed in a way. Like, he's still obsessed with Christine and whatever, you know, with this, but it's not in like the creepy way, you know, where he was willing to murder people and kidnap her and keep her with him forever and stuff. Like, he's kind of moved on past that and he's not killing anyone anymore. But it feels like 10 years is a long time, but it just feels like so much positive character growth, but like it doesn't feel earned. It like feels out of place. Not like I'm fully expecting him to be the same person as he was in Phantom of the Opera, but it's like too much progress and not enough like interactions with people or time or anything, that he's just so well adjusted in this that it just does not feel believable. But especially with this of like showing like he doesn't even know that this person is his son, by the way. He just vaguely speculates it, and just off a few common interests he's like, okay, I'm ready to take off my mask and like show this person my face willingly. Like, he doesn't even do that with Christine. I mean, he does in this musical where he just full on talks to her sometimes without his wig and mask, but you know, it's Christine, so that's fair. But like with this kid, it's just weird. So he takes it off, and then Gustav actually screams like in fear, and then Christine shows up and apologizes for his behavior, and the Phantom immediately grabs her by the neck and demands to know if that's his son, which she says yes and everything. And I find it interesting that when talking to Christine, he like, he's so willing to show his face to like Gustav, and then when talking to Christine, he literally does the thing where he covers the side of his face with one hand again. I mean, they do mention in Beneath the Moonless Sky, I forgot to mention because it's plot important, that, you know, Christine had the opportunity to just stay with the Phantom and stuff, and that it's revealed, oh, she really did love him or whatever, and she was willing to leave Raoul for him. That was like her plan. But then the Phantom leaves in the morning, and it's revealed like he did that because oh gosh, I'd remembered what it was and I went blank. He thinks that she will regret her choices in the morning, like seeing him and seeing and knowing what they did, and about being like disgusted by his face. But it makes no sense because the whole like ending with the first musical was that she literally said to him that she was unafraid of his face. The line of like, this face holds no horrors to me mouth, that was her big thing. And then it ended with like her kissing him out of like sympathy and stuff. She's like unafraid of him, and he knows that, and it was like a big thing for him too. And now with this, you truly expect me to believe that the woman he not only was obsessed with at this opera house and, you know, inviting her to Coney Island, but the fact that like he groomed her since she was a child and like teaching her these lessons and whatever, and that, you know, he was willing to let her go after they finally like got to fuck after one night, like just because he was supposedly worried about his face. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, what? It's just completely stupid. Like, it just exists just so that, you know, the whole plot can happen of like they meet again on Coney Island, and, you know, the fact they have these like feelings towards each other and whatever. Like, you shouldn't cover his face when talking to her. She knows what you look like, dude. She's not afraid of you anymore. Maybe it's just like a habit or whatever. So then he says that he'll let her go if she makes sure, she has to like promise not to tell Gustav that the Phantom is like his actual father, which I guess that sort of makes sense in that like Gustav just literally met him like that same day and, you know, saw the Phantom's face. In his mind, he views the Phantom as scary. And it's kind of funny because, like, at the end of the musical, it could have been like actual character development or something for Gustav, of like at the end, his mom tells him that the Phantom is his father, like when she's on her freaking deathbed, and he screams no and runs away. Besides that, that's a messed up thing to do to your dying mother, which I'll mention again that in my notes. That could have been a moment where, you know, he could have accepted the Phantom or something, but he still gives the exact same reaction or whatever to finding that out. And then the musical does end with him running up to the Phantom for a hug, but it's not immediate. He actually hugs Raoul first, and then he kind of just awkwardly stares at the Phantom and gives him a hug, and the Phantom awkwardly hugs him back, and that's it. But that does, and there's no dialogue either, but it doesn't make me believe that, like, oh, he suddenly cares for the Phantom. And the Phantom's still wearing his mask in that scene too. I guess that means Gustav is forced to accept the Phantom as his father. And, like, they were kind of somewhat bonding, like, before Gustav saw his face in the first place. It just feels like bullshit. I don't know. Anyway, and then there's a song where the Phantom is, like, confronting Christine. And that one's good, actually. It uses part of the melody from Once Upon Another Time in there. That's why I was saying that original song was like growing on me throughout the musical, because it kept popping up in other songs where I was like, oh wait, okay, that actually sounds good. There's this part that kind of kills me. It's like one of the only times where they have sexual tension to Phantom and Christine, where Christine, they're like couple inches apart from each other, and she puts her hands on the side of, you know how like in movies and stuff, I don't know if it's a thing people do in real life, where a character will put both their hands like gripping the sides of someone's face, like very gently, usually like on their cheeks, and you know that means they're gonna like pull them into a kiss, or they're going in to kiss them. That is like always the sign of whenever that happens, and it has to be like both hands, because if it's just like one hand, then it's like, you know, you're stroking their cheek or whatever. But she puts both hands on there, his arms are around her, they're in kissing distance, and she doesn't kiss him. She just puts her hands down and leaves. And I'm like, this could have been, actually there's one time in this musical where they kiss, and it's at the very end, and I'm like, you guys are supposed to supposedly be like lovers now, and you like don't really even kiss or anything. It's just, it feels kind of silly, because like there's parts like that in the song, or like in this musical, where it's like the perfect moment, and it's not like, I get with Phantom of the Opera, the kiss is supposed to be this big important thing, because it's like, you know, they're finally like touching and stuff and having a romantic moment, but it's also her showing sympathy. It's like Christine is making her choice. It's like a big meaningful thing, but also like, hey, they're finally kissing now or whatever. But then here it's like, you know, you've already gone past that in this plot line, you're like lovers, so I feel like kissing could have been a more casual thing, or it could have happened sooner, especially because like in this portion of the musical, they're having so many of these like romantic duets, so then not having it end with like a hug or a kiss or even a forehead tap or anything is just like, bro, what? Okay, and then the Phantom kind of sings to himself when Christine leaves. I don't know if it's part of the same song, but the vocals go pretty hard is what I wrote in my notes. And then you finally get a good look at his makeup, and it is a bit different from how it is in the original musical, where I do love that the skull, the skull and the brain exposed is still the exact same and stuff. That was awesome. But now the big difference is he has a black circle around his eye, which is supposed to be like an empty socket, and it is kind of cool from far, and his face does look more skeletal. Like his nose is normal, like it's just like the actor's regular nose and stuff, rather than being like covered in something, but his face is more kind of like half skeletal and stuff, and then when you see shots of him from far away, it really does look like he's missing an eye. You know, like it's the socket, and it does look like there's like half of like a skull face on his face. I think that's pretty cool. I actually do like the makeup here better, and the hair's the same and stuff, still being like the wispy white, which I still kind of hate that. Not as like a hair thing or whatever, it fits the character and it's cool, but like it's just another reminder of like, oh right, he's old enough to be her dad, which makes this even more like icky that they're actually a couple. Not just that they're like romantically a couple now, whatever, but the fact that the plot hinges on them having this like dramatic one night stand, and that he fathered a child. How is bro even still able to father a child? How old is he at this point? I know it's only like 10 years later, which like in the grand scheme of things is not a lot, but like this is someone, again, not only old enough to be her dad, but the fact that I think he's supposed to probably be around the same age as Madame Zuri, and she was like, you know, already kind of oldish or whatever. So it's like freaking icky. Like romantically, if they had just become a couple, okay, I mean, still would be icky, but I'd be like a little more forgiving, whatever. But like the fact that they have a child, and the child is 10 years old, is just like, ugh, bro. Anyway, but yeah, this little part the Phantom sings when he's alone is like finally when he sounds the way he did in like the other like performances and stuff in the other musical and stuff, where he's like flying through these notes with like such an ease of like vocal control and stuff. I love it. It's what I'm freaking here for. I wish I remembered what the song was called, because that's the thing that's hard, where sometimes like a character sings and then another character sings, but it's like not the end of like the scene, and you're not really sure as you're listening if it's like the same song or a different song. I don't know. But it's like a cool moment where the Phantom like triumphantly declares that he'll give his son, now that he knows he has a son, everything that he has. And he's like actually smiling for once while he's singing this too. Like there's a part where he has a huge smile and he tosses his sheet music into the air. He doesn't really smile in this musical very much, even though it's like happier for him, you know. He's not like, I think with Phantom of the Opera though, it was mostly he was smiling when he was mischievous or going to murder someone, but here it's like he's happy for his son that he barely knows exists. That's always what's funny to me. It reminds me of like one of the last Doctor Who episodes that also kind of pissed me off, where it's the thing of like a character finds out they have a child that they had no idea about, and they're really willing to risk everything for that child, but like you've only known they've existed for like 5 minutes, is always just kind of goofy to me. Of like, I'm glad you care about your child, but like you didn't even know they existed yesterday, so why do you care this much so quickly? You know. But like anyway, good for the Phantom, I guess. Like if anything, like yeah, Christine dies at the end of this musical and stuff, but the Phantom, I guess, can finally maybe let her go, and now he has a son to take care of, so he gets something out of this whole plot. And I feel like part of his character development in this is also about like, you know, he goes from being obsessed to Christine, and then he's entirely focused on the son for the rest of it, and like trying to get them to bond and to accept him and stuff. So I guess that's kind of nice. I don't know. And then it's revealed that Madame Zuri was there, and she gets pissed about Gustave being the one to get everything. And I like the line when because it means she won't get anything. She won't get any of the stuff she was owed from the Phantom. She sings this line of like, that bastard who should never have been born, and she sounds just really villainous in that part. It reminded me of like Mother Gothel, or like an evil Disney villain or something. And then we get to like the second act, which has way less songs than the first. Damn. So we get to see what Raoul's been up to, and I forgot that he existed. Same with the hench people. We see them like right after the stuff with Raoul, and yeah, I forgot Raoul was in this at all because, you know, it's really just been the Phantom and Christine's the main characters. So he has this sad song when he's in a bar called Why Does She Love Me? That was actually that one's pretty good actually. Yeah, I was debating to say if that was my favorite or not. I don't remember, but it would be in like third place probably. It's this song about how he can't, it's like the one time he's sort of likable because he's showing like the tiniest bit of character growth, I guess, where he says how he can't give Christine the tenderness she deserves, but mostly like musically she can't give him what she deserves or whatever. It's actually beautifully sung. It has these like very tragic kind of strings to it instrumentally, and unlike the Phantom and Christine, somewhat, I don't know, he actually sounds like really emotional singing it and stuff, which made me invested in it. There's a saxophone in the background too. Yeah, it's pretty nice. And then Meg is there and trying to convince him to leave America and stuff. And then she leaves, and oh yeah, Meg says this whole thing about like how being on Coney Island and being in America, it's such a tough place, and implying like that's the reason she has so much of a personality shift, that like living there like changed her as a person. She had to like harden up and everyone's mean and whatever, but it's like her personality and stuff has completely changed so much that she's not really even recognizable as the same character. Anyway, she leaves, and there's like one funny moment. It's like one of the only times I laughed at it. The musical does basically become a comedy and how ridiculous it gets by the end though. So there was more laughter for me later, where he says about like, oh, I don't want to see the Phantom again. I don't want to see his disgusting face again. And then the bartender that has been there the whole time turns around and it's the Phantom. And maybe, I think because it was harder to like see the stage at that point, where it's not like a close up or anything of the Phantom there. I mean, the hair, once you see it, is like, yeah, that's the Phantom's hair, but it could have just been someone with black hair or whatever, and the Phantom's wearing a different outfit. Oh yeah, the Phantom's outfits kind of suck in this, but I'll get to that later. But yeah, the bartender turns around and it's the Phantom for some... Why is he there working as a bartender? Like, you have things to do, dude. And he's there... I feel like he probably targeted Raoul, though. And I like that he speaks with his regular voice, like he's not trying to sound threatening or anything when he's talking to Raoul. It's not the soft, vulnerable voice like he uses Christine with the other musical, the one that I was saying, like, oh, his real voice or whatever. But here he just sounds kind of normal. And then him and Raoul, they have a duet. It's called Devil Take the Hindmost. It's one of my favorites. It's really good, actually. It's where they make a bet over who Christine will choose. And I like that title because it's like referring to the Phantom as in this whole concept of making a bet with him is like a deal with the devil. And I like how the Phantom, he's wearing his wig, but like the rest of his face is fully visible. He doesn't wear his mask or anything. And he's like that with Christine a lot of the time too. Which part of the reason I hate his character in this is like he doesn't have any of the mystery anymore. And this is part of the reason of like, you know, he goes in Phantom of like being ashamed of his appearance, and then, you know, with Beneath the Moonless Sky supposedly of like, you know, he didn't want Christine to see his face and him hiding his face behind his hand here. But then there's times where he talks to her and Raoul and he's just not even bothered wearing his mask at all. It's just like, there's his face and no one cares and whatever. I mean, I'm glad they're not disgusted with him anymore, but it's just kind of like, oh, okay. I also wonder how the Phantom is able to physically overpower Raoul sometimes, like in this, or not sometimes, it's like all the time basically, now that I think about it. Like in this, during the song, he like shoves his hand into Raoul's chest a couple times, and to kind of like keep him in place while he's talking. And then with Phantom of the Opera, it's like he's able to like put the noose over Raoul and like drag him backwards and stuff and all of these things. And it's like, why is he so strong. Like, he's very spry and stuff, but for like an old man. Because that's the thing, he's someone Madame Giry's age. I assumed he looks like he's in his like 50s or 60s or something, you know, when he's not wearing the wig and you like get to see his full face and whatever. And like Raoul's a young man, or you know, at least in Phantom of the Opera he's like a young man. Here it's like, you know, he's like old enough to be a parent or whatever, but like why is the why is he getting overpowered by this old man all the time? Like, that shouldn't be possible, unless the Phantom is like actually really fit under all the clothes or whatever. I mean, I know he's always, you know, played by like young hot actors and stuff in this specific musical and whatever, but it's still just so funny to me. I think that's where I kind of forget, like, oh yeah, it's easy to forget, like, oh yeah, the Phantom, you know, unless you're looking at him without the wig and stuff, I was like, yeah, he's an old man and stuff, because he just physically does not seem that way at all, like with his movements and everything. He's more like energetic and extra and everything than like everyone else. So then there's a song called Heaven by the Sea. It's plays in the first act, but it was kind of confusing to me because I couldn't tell when it played or where, but it plays properly here, or it's supposed to be the reprise, I guess, because I got it mixed up with the Only for Him song originally, but here it's just Heaven by the Sea. You know what, it is catchy. I feel like it's gonna get stuck in my head even though I already forgot what it sounded like. But yeah, then the Phantom's 3 henchmen show up. I thought they were gonna be like more plot important, but they don't really do anything. And then Meg gets the Bathing Beauty song that I skipped, where you get to actually hear the full thing this time, where it's her and her, like, the girls that dance with her, and they can't really sing well. They were kind of annoying. I feel like that's supposed to be the point, because it's kind of like a trashy song, in a sense. And then she has one with her mom called Mother Did You Watch, and that one's sad in that it's a good contrast where the music of it is bouncy and fun. A lot of Meg's music is like that in this, but then the lyrics are sad, where she just wants the Phantom to notice her, and she's saying of like, oh mother, did you see my performance? Do you think the Phantom saw it too? So excited, if he saw it, he'll finally notice me and whatever. And then the mom is saying how like, yeah, the Phantom doesn't care about you, he has a son with Christine. And this is kind of like Meg's sort of breaking point of, you know, being kind of against Christine now and knowing she won't get the Phantom's love or whatever. And then we get a song called Before the Performance, where it's one of those group songs between like Gustave, Christine, Raoul, and the Phantom, but I don't have notes on it. I forgot that it existed. I'm just kind of following along with the Wikipedia thing right now. We get to hear a reprise of Till I Hear You Sing, where the Phantom is actually singing it to Christine this time. I thought that was pretty nice. That was especially the part of it where I thought, like, yeah, he sounds the most like himself and stuff, or like his old self. I think with him, you know, as a character, I mentioned he doesn't feel mysterious in this sequel. There's no... I mean, it's good he's not killing anyone, but there's no tricks, even like tricks or magic or anything that he does. You know, how he's doing the tricks with like the fire and all the illusions and everything. I get it's partially because, you know, it's the opera house and it's like his playground and whatever. And here it's, but he's had 10 years living in this location, and he's at freaking Coney Island, where it's like carnivals and other stuff and like freaks and oddities and whatever. This should be a location that's appropriate for like illusions and bullshit and whatever. And the Phantom, he doesn't do any of that. There's no violence, there's no killing. He barely threatens people. I think that's why he doesn't really feel the same as a character too. I actually liked in the original when he threatens people, whether he was like trying to be the villain or not, you know? It kept you on your toes and made it more interesting as a character. He doesn't have any of the flashy outfits. It's all just black. Actually, some of his outfits are just completely normal. And it's a bummer because, like, you know, he's like the freaking owner of Coney Island. I feel like, again, that would be an excuse to be extra and whatever. And it's the Phantom. There's no way he just dresses normally all the time. He doesn't even have the hat or the cape either. It's like, who even are you? That's the thing. Like, on one hand, it's, I guess, kind of cool of like, okay, this is like a thing with the story of like he gets to be the love interest to Christine, and he still sings beautifully and whatever, you know. And it's like, okay, I guess he's like a nicer guy now, where, you know, he's more appropriate as, like, I guess if you have to force him to be a love interest like this and how he is in Phantom of the Opera and stuff, he's like calmed down a bit. But it's like all the fun things with him. I mean, I shouldn't be calling the threatening to kill people thing fun. I mean, like, the tricks, the magic, the fun costumes, and all this other stuff that made him like a cool character. Just none of that is here, so it just makes him less appealing to even be like why is Christine interested in him anymore? He's just a normal guy for the entirety of this, even like with his motives and whatever, like even all the money he has and everything he's done of like becoming like the king of Coney Island was all completely due to Meg and Madame Giry, but mostly Meg anyway, for supporting him and getting all the money and stuff. So he's just like a normal guy. It's like so disappointing because the Phantom, like, he's already of course an important character in the original musical, but here he and Christine are both like number one protagonists of this. So he gets a lot of scenes and more songs and more stuff with Christine. It's great, but like at the cost of like he just becomes so much worse as a character, like way less interesting. Because I loved with and it could just be because they're in like a spooky opera house and whatever and all the mystery things going on, that the Phantom was like this like ghostly, like ethereal eternal figure or whatever, where you're not sure, is he a man, is he a ghost? He, besides all his magic tricks and illusion bullshit, he had those lines where he, even when he wasn't trying to like scare anyone or whatever, I mean, it could also be because he was like in a sewer or hiding all the time or whatever. He doesn't ever really hide here either, where, you know, he has those lines where he sings in like this kind of ghostly way from a distance and whatever. None of that shit is here, and it just kind of pisses me off. He's just like, he's supposed to be the same character, but he's just a guy, and not in the way where like in the 25th anniversary thing where I was saying how there was moments where he got to be like really really vulnerable in front of Christine, where I was like, this is so cool. It reminds you that despite everything, you know, and his face and his actions and whatever, he is, you know, a human person just like her. I said he's just a guy, but in that example, in that context, it worked great. But here, I mean it in like the boring bad way, where he's just some guy. He's not like the epic cool Phantom of the Opera or whatever, and it just kills me inside. And then we even get like callbacks to songs in the other musical, and that also hurts, because then I'm just like, damn, those songs are better than, you know, the stuff that's here. Like, we even get Raoul's line of like, not trying to scare you, Christine, but every prayer rests in you now, you know, when Christine, because it's supposed to be the big moment where, you know, this is what the plot has been leading up to, of Christine deciding to sing the song and whether Raoul is forced to leave her or not. And it's just like, I don't care anymore. That's when I kind of just stopped caring about anything happening with the plot. Like the big thing, you know, with the Phantom of the Opera is that they're trying to catch this murderer, and then the climax of it is that all the stuff of the point of no return of like, who will Christine choose? Will Raoul die there? And it's like all very tense and whatever, and if there's like real stakes behind it. And here the main plot has just been leading to like, okay, is she going to sing this song again? We're gonna run again to see if like which love interest will she choose or whatever, even though it's like obviously the Phantom at this point, like they child together and everything. And then the climax of this whole thing ends up being this really short thing that happens at the end of like suddenly there's a gun and people are being held hostage, and it's so stupid that I just stopped caring. Like I said, I felt like nothing by the end of this, but this was the point where I checked out. And it's funny because this is where Christine finally gets to sing Love Never Dies. It's this song, this romantic aria that the Phantom writes for her, and it's just boring. Like it's finally the time where like she shows all the emotion on her face and stuff, and it's sung well. It just feels boring. It doesn't hold my attention as well as like, and it's like you see what a powerhouse she is with like Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again, or even with the song Think of Me. Like you can kind of compare Love Never Dies almost to like Think of Me a little bit. They're like sort of similar, but that one was just more interesting, where it starts off very kind of soft and gentle and whatever, and then she goes, you know, like louder and everything, and it's just this thing of like, whoa, she can like sing and stuff. And then, you know, or with Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again, it's like that one, it's, you know, her at her lowest moment. And then this one is just like, okay, she has to sing this song and it's like the Phantom song and whatever, but I'm not really feeling the context behind it. Like it's the song that's performed the best and the actress gives her all and stuff, but I'm just not emotionally attached to it. Lyrically, it just feels so boring. Anyway, but yeah, I missed the Phantom of the Opera, the other musical, the thing that I watched, the version I watched, where they're giving like 110% acting wise. And here they're giving it their all, like when singing, but like the acting and facial expressions are just not here, and it that would have given it more of like a depth and stuff. So yeah, the titular song, you know, that the whole storyline was leading up to and stuff is just kind of whatever. I think a lot of the songs, there's just too many slow, like pretty ballads. I think a lot of the lyrics suck and the songs lack the power, the punch of the original musical songs and such. So then Raoul loses his bet and he leaves Christine forever. And it's like, okay, that's it, you know, like there's nothing that would get in the way of like the Phantom and Christine being together now. But what's this? Gustave has gone missing, and him and Christine, because the Phantom now cares about Gustave, and like realizing that, you know, he's gone, he gets like pissed, you know. He thinks that Raoul kidnapped her and then Madame Giry, but no, it turns out to be Meg or whatever. And it's just funny because like everything from this point onward, you know, would not have happened if the Phantom had just been like a little more appreciative of Meg and her mom. So this is what I meant, where like it kind of comes back to bite him in the ass. But it's funny because it just makes it feel like this plot line kind of comes out of nowhere. I mean, you do see stuff with her and Madame Giry spying on things and whatever throughout the musical, but like the main plot, you know, seeming to be focused on the Phantom and the stuff with like Gustave and who's Christine gonna choose. So then suddenly bringing up this of like, Meg is here, whatever, it just feels kind of like it's just thrown in for like drama and stuff. And it's really weird too, where she kidnaps Gustave and she keeps talking about the water, and they're by the pier. At this point, Meg is like very visibly like suicidal. You get the impression that originally she kidnaps him and she's gonna go drown the two of them in the pier or something. I don't really know what she needs Gustave for. I'm still confused why she kidnapped him in the first place, but whatever. So like the final like 10 minutes of this ends up being, I'm not even kidding, Meg pulls out a gun out of nowhere Like, if your plan was to drown yourself and you're by the water, like, where the hell did she even pull it out of? Like, why did you bring a gun? But Meg has a gun. No clue where she got that from. And she threatens to shoot the Phantom and I guess his family now. Christine and Gustav. And now the Phantom, the fucking Phantom of the Opera has to negotiate a hostage situation. And even though that's like a crazy thing that just comes out of nowhere, you know, there is like no tension really. I feel like this should be a big exciting thing. Like, this is more of like a death threat situation than like, you know, the being in the lair in the point of no return. But this just feels so ridiculous and stupid. I can't take it seriously. Oh my gosh, apparently because when he starts trying to negotiate her, the Phantom very gently says the line, "Give me the gun, Meg." Like, I laughed at that. I can't believe that was the point where I'm like, I can't believe this is real. I can't believe the Phantom of the Opera is saying shit like this. We get some more context with Meg though, of like, that's when we learn that like she's been having sex with all these rich people to earn money, and she kind of just cracks at this point and says how she's fed up with how she's being treated by the Phantom. And on one hand, it's like, I get it, you know, he had this coming. It's not really a surprise, I guess, that she's blowing up in his face, you know. Like, it's not like it's coming out of nowhere. It's just so weird with the whole gun situation. It feels very random. That's why this whole thing feels very fan fiction-y and stuff. Just this whole ending segment is just so freaking ridiculous, and there's like, again, no tension with it. And the hilarious, oh my gosh, the part where Christine gets shot is actually so funny. Like, I knew that she got shot. That was like the thing that I knew from this whole storyline like years before. I assume it's the way it happens is funny to me though. Like, I assumed, you know, knowing like, oh, Meg shoots Christine and Christine dies. I thought it was gonna be Meg shooting Christine out of like anger or jealousy. Like, if they changed what happens and stuff, it could have become more tense very easily. Of like, you know, she's jealous of Christine at this point. She doesn't even want to hear Christine mentioned to her. So it could have been, if she like held Gustav at gunpoint, or Christine, or held a gun in Christine's face or something, this would have been so much better. Or if she was trying to like purposely kill Christine. But yeah, the actual context is stupider. So the Phantom surprisingly almost calms her down, and then freaking says and ends his little thing with, "We can't all be Christine." This immediately pisses off Meg for like a second, and then the gun just goes off, and she's not even aiming at Christine. Christine is like technically in the way of the gun, but she's like far away from it. Meg isn't even looking. She's like looking at the Phantom, and it's not like Meg was trying to kill her. I feel like it only happens just to like make Christine and Phantom into tragic lovers and add drama and be like a haha, you think these two would really have a happy ending together, even though they've been super romantic this entire time. Like, Raoul was out of the picture. There was nothing stopping them from being together. The Phantom even accepted being a dad, of all things. Like, all the obstacles were gone. And Meg was already suicidal anyway, and then this shit happens. I feel like it would have worked better if either Meg actually shot herself and it was treated as like a punishment for the Phantom of like, you know, you didn't appreciate these people that helped you, and now this story like ends in death, and it's like, she's dead, it's your fault. That, especially because Meg goes on this whole tangent of how she tried to help the Phantom and just wanted his attention this whole time. I feel like that could have been interesting. Or if the Phantom was killed instead as like the punishment and stuff, you know, that would have been great, because then he still would have kind of learned his lesson of like appreciating people, and it would have finished off the Meg and Juri and Madame Juri storyline and stuff, and they would have like gotten their revenge on him, and that would have been fine, you know. And it would have worked too, in that, you know, this musical forgets the Phantom is literally a murderer. He haunted this opera house. Like, none of that shit is mentioned in this at all, you know, to make him more appealing, like as a love interest or whatever. But that could have been the cool thing of like, okay, his sins have finally, you know, caught up with him and stuff, and he gets shot. Like, it would have made everything feel more meaningful, in the sense of like everything else would have been worth it in this, of, you know, he's lonely. It's been 10 years away from Christine. He's able to lure her over. He finds out he has a son. Christine loves him. You know, he never has to worry about Raoul again. The Phantom has won in like every aspect. And then he gets shot by Meg because he didn't appreciate her helping him and stuff, or it could have even been in like a jealous rage or whatever, and he got his final desserts of like he cannot escape his past and stuff, and then he could have died. And you know, it still would have affected the other characters. Like, would Gustav had found out that that was his father? Now what if he did find out of like that man who just died was actually your dad, and whatever. Or like Christine, you know, she finally would get to be lovers with the Phantom, and they wanted to do that so many years ago and whatever, and they finally had the chance, and then he's dead now, and she has to like raise Gustav on her own, and Raoul is not there, so she doesn't have anyone to like pay her debts. You know, that it would have still been a consequence to all the other characters too, and it would have worked. I would have been fine if someone got shot and died, if it, you know, because the whole, everything in this musical is about like the Phantom, not, even though Christine, you know, has to like make her choice and whatever, the Phantom is like the central character. So I feel like that would have been like actually satisfying to his story. I would have been fine with that. But no, instead it's that Christine is not even like shot on purpose either. That, like I said, that could have also worked. There's like a bit, like 3 different ways they could have probably done this, maybe more, where I could see these actions being justified or whatever. Like, the characters all had the motivation, but no, it's that she's accidentally shot in like a very stupid way that just feels like it's thrown on the ends. Like, it's so stupid. And then his Gustav with his mom is like, that's when it's revealed of like, oh yeah, the Phantom is your father. Like, his mother is literally dying in front of him, and he knows that, and it's his last chance to be with her, but then he ends up running away when, you know, his father is revealed or whatever. The 2 things I do sort of like though is that the song Love with All Your Heart or whatever, it plays like right before Christine tells Gustav, as kind of like a, because the lyrics are about being kind to people, and that love can be can seem deceiving, but it's not, or whatever, and like see with your heart, and this whole lesson that like Christine had been trying to teach him early on. And it's like instrumentally there, and then he reacts, you know, the opposite of that to finding out about the Phantom being his father is really funny to me. And then there's like a long scene, you know, where Christine is dying in the Phantom's arms, and he's holding her. I wish he held her more closely and stuff. I feel like he's barely holding her. It doesn't feel like the way you would of like your lover is dying in your arms, you know. But anyway, he sings that song, the like Once Upon Another Time or whatever, but then it's changed to being out like how their story has like had finally just begun. They finally could have had a life together, like with their son and stuff, where they didn't even probably have to stay at Coney Island at that point, whatever. And it's just so funny because, like, with the original musical ending, I was on the edge of my seat and I was sad watching Christine ugly cry at saying goodbye to the Phantom. And I felt so sorry for both of these characters. And I, like, I mentioned it. I completely bought into their bond and stuff. And then here I'm watching her die in his arms, which should be more emotional, but everyone they're not, neither of them are like crying or anything or look really that upset. Christine doesn't even seem like tired or anything, and she's literally dying from a wound. And I'm just so stone-faced and I am feeling absolutely nothing, and this is like the ending that should be more tense because someone is dying, the main character is dying, and that concept is sad of like your lover dying in your arms. I thought it would have been cool if maybe like the Phantom's so calm about it too, if he was like pleading or something or being like, no, you can't die or whatever. But no, I mean, he does scream no when she finally dies, and it's in that same tone as like when he screams at the end of the other musical too, but of course it does not hit as hard at all. I think he's also missing a lot of the hand movements and stuff in this too, which is also kind of a bummer. The ones that I really liked in the other one. And that's what's also hard to compare it, where I know it's like the same actors in the versions I'm watching and stuff, and they're playing the same characters, but it's hard because like not only is it the 10 years later thing, but this is a sequel, and the other one is like the original story, so it should be different. But it's just so funny to me that like I don't even know if how much of it is like the writing and directing and like the material of it, of like just the fact that like the 25th anniversary thing is like so dramatic, and they're giving their all in both of these, to be fair, but like in that one it's like it feels so fucking raw and real throughout the whole thing, and then here it's like watching a play. That actually comes off as insulting. No, it's like I don't know. You lose, like, vocally they still sound amazing and everything. That's the one thing that still feels the same. But like, other than that, there's just like the tension between these characters or in the story, or me believing the Phantom and Christine's relationship. None of it's freaking here. Like, they do finally kiss, like it is saved until this very last moment when they kiss and she dies as they kiss, but it's not even like as hot or anything, or even as like dramatic, because he leans down to kiss her, and she kind of leans up where you can see them, but you can't see their mouths because their heads are covering each other's faces, and it's like I don't even get to see the big kiss where she dies. But yeah, I got kind of tired of the songs as they were like constantly replayed as like instrumentals and stuff. It felt too repetitive. And it's funny because this is 2 hours and so is the actual like Phantom of the Opera. And every musical does this and stuff, or even like movies where it's like you hear a song and then you hear an instrumental version of it like later in the thing or whatever. But I think it's just because a lot of the songs sound the same, and are kind of boring, that I'm actually got so tired of hearing Beneath the Moonless Sky. It's funny, I think I did actually hear that song. I saw a performance of it on YouTube. It wasn't these actors though. I think it was like a Chinese version of the song, so I didn't know what the lyrics were. I just thought like, damn, this sounds really pretty, because every once in a while I find videos of these like Chinese productions of different musicals. Like, I saw one that was like popular from Wicked. It's only like the clips of these songs. I don't know what like specific productions they're from. Like, I saw one for Chicago where it was the song We Both Reached for the Gun, and I swear it was like the best performed version of that song I have ever freaking seen. Man, now I want to watch Chicago. I bought the DVD of that too, but I left it at my brother's house, and he lives like 3 hours away. I'm not gonna go to his house just to get that DVD. But that's one of my favorite musicals as well. I also have to talk about that eventually. I might get it in like a month though. He's coming to visit for November. I mean for Thanksgiving. I have to pester him to bring it. Anyway, and then Raoul is revealed to be there when Christine dies. Oh yeah, he doesn't get to talk to her, interact with her or anything. It's just Christine the Phantom while she dies, and he sets her body down, and Raoul is there. I mean, I guess maybe he knew because like Gustave left and Raoul probably found him, but like at this point Raoul is already like long gone, you know, has already went back to France, and he's been out of the picture in this plot ever since then, and now he's suddenly here. Like, how did he even know Christine died or where she was or any of this, you know? It feels weird. Also, the way the Phantom is with physical touch in this and how inconsistent it is bothers me. Where he can hold Christine while she dies and he's fine touching her and stuff, but then with his son, they just very awkwardly hug, where the Phantom's hands, even, they don't really wrap around him at first, and they do that shaking thing, kind of like when he hugs Christine for the first time in the other musical, except with that one he has like the Barbie doll hands, I call it, where they're sticking straight out, and it's so obvious he has never hugged anyone in his life, but here it's like, maybe this is the second hug he's ever had. I don't know. And it's just like a really awkward ending, because like once Christine dies, there's no more singing, there's no more dialogue, there's no music, there's no anything. It's completely silent. It's just that Gustave hugs Raoul, and while he's hugging him, he stares at the Phantom, and he walks up to the Phantom and hugs him, and the Phantom awkwardly hugs him back, and that's it. I was half expecting Gustave to like take off the Phantom's wig and mask at that scene, and it could have been like a cool way of like he finally, you know, right after his mother dies and everything, accepts the Phantom, and it just leaves you at that, where I don't even know or care what's gonna happen. These characters, like Christine is dead, like I guess the Phantom's gonna raise Gustave. Why is Raoul there? You don't find out what happened to Meg and Madame Giry either. Like it's literally like Meg shoots Christine on accident, the Phantom freaks out, the Phantom tells Madame Giry to take Meg, and they leave, and that's it. Like, this person just killed someone, and they're just allowed to leave, but also the Phantom doesn't try and like attack Meg or anything. And just the fact that he's able to do that so quickly and stuff, you know, I mean, I know he held them at gunpoint, but I'm surprised with the Phantom being the way he is and how like physically confrontational he can easily be with people, that he actually had to do the whole hostage navigation thing. I feel like he could have taken the gun away from her. I feel like he would have tried, even if he would have been shot, you know, to like possibly save Christine or to protect her and Gustave, or just there's so many ways that scene could have gone. It almost reminds me of like freaking Titanic, with the thing where they're on the door and how they both could have gone on there, and that whole thing or whatever, where it's like the situation could have been resolved, like, yeah, she's holding everyone at gunpoint, but it could have somehow, I don't know. The Phantom feels like the kind of person who would have worn a bulletproof vest if it was invented anyway at the time. But yeah, that's the whole thing, really. Sorry, hold on, I'm trying to put my phone out of battery saver mode so I can turn it off so it doesn't die. Yeah, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I did. I just mostly felt, I don't even know if I could say I felt disappointed because I knew exactly what I was getting into. Well, not exactly. Okay. I knew some of the ridiculous things with the plot. I knew that the story was bad and that people hated it. I didn't know anything about the songs. The songs are mostly kind of disappointing, and it's a shame because a lot of the instrumentals and stuff of it are like really, the instruments are really pretty, and they have more of that like haunting and gothic vibe that would have actually matched the setting and the musical of like the Phantom of the Opera rather than this, you know? I feel like they almost could have been like, the scores could have been switched and it could have worked better in a way. Like, I don't want the songs taken away from Phantom of the Opera. And that's the other thing too. I feel like a lot of them match the context and the things of like what's going on in the story or whatever. Like, they all have a meaning and like a reason to be there and stuff. And then with this, it's like, dude, why is the Bathing Beauties even here? It does like nothing really for the plot. I mean, it gives Meg, let's say Megan, it gives Meg a song to perform. And I mean, at one point it's semi-important where she performs and it's like, hey, did the Phantom see it? No, dang, you know. But like that one's there, or like the little songs that like the hench people have. There's just like a shit ton of songs in the first act that aren't even like full songs, where a lot of the stuff I'm like, why does it need to be there, you know? Or like a character sings but it's only for like a couple lines and that's it. It's just really disappointing. I mean, there are some gems in there, at least in my opinion. I really liked that Raoul Phantom duet song. And speaking of that, one of the things that's funny to me when like reading about this musical and stuff is that people make the joke of like, what if there was a third musical but it was about, because like with the way the ending ends, people joke of like, you know, because Raoul is there and just him and the Phantom and Gustave and that's it, that the next part of the plot would be Phantom and Gustave, the Phantom and Raoul raising Gustave together, which I feel like would work or was kind of be sad. I don't know. I mean, he hugs both of them once Christine dies. It could be interpreted that way, which is almost funny to me because, like, you know, the two characters hate each other, but I mean, they do have a duet together and stuff, and they do kind of have an intro. I'm not saying I ship them or anything, but I'm just like, wait a minute, maybe. You know, when they interact, where the Phantom is like very playful around Raoul and like a making fun of him sort of way, and Raoul just like hates his guts and whatever. Okay, no, I could see this being like a I was almost gonna say enemies to lovers, but like, you know, when it's like two characters hate each other in canon and then people ship them or whatever, it kind of feels, it could be interpreted, I feel like, only in the context of Love Never Dies, in that way. I mean, the whole thing feels kind of like a shitpost anyway. It's basically fan fiction on stage, which I find really funny because it's made by the same creator as Phantom of the Opera, which is still crazy to me, of like, how do you make a masterpiece and then you make a sequel to your masterpiece and it's like a dumpster fire? But when I was oh shit, I accidentally hit my table. When I read the some of the comments and what was happening in Andrew Lloyd Webber's life during like both of these musicals, then the reason for this existing makes complete sense to me now, rather than just trying to be like a cash grab or whatever. Because okay, with like the original Phantom of the Opera, I forgot about it, but the original actress for Christine was actually like Andrew Lloyd Webber's wife. And it was, you know, this whole thing of like having this role for her of being like the angel of music and stuff, and the Phantom is basically like his self-insert character of being like the genius composer and stuff. And then with this, you know, the story is about Christine, you know, going back to the Phantom, realizing she picked the wrong person and that the Phantom was the better choice, them becoming lovers, and then she dies at the end, which is crazy because with what was happening in his life at the time or something, this was written like post his divorce, which I feel like gives all the context you need, but also just the fact that you're taking this character that was like based on your like, and the role was like originated by your wife, your like ex-wife, and now having it where she comes crawling back to the character that represents you, and then she dies at the end of the musical, and calling it Love Never Dies. Just yeah, that's probably why that's why it's almost funny saying like this feels like someone's fanfic. It's his fix-it fanfic about like him and his wife, is like the vibe that it gives off and such. I was also reading about the like lore of making it and stuff on Wikipedia. I find it really funny. Apparently it sounds ridiculous, where I'm not even sure if it's true, where apparently his cat deleted like the entire score of the musical that had been written up to that point off of his like keyboard or something. So there was like jokes in like the YouTube comments and things for like, you know, it was when I was listening to some of the songs again and stuff, or like I was taking breaks, where people were saying like the cat was a hero for deleting the score and was trying to save us. But yeah, that's so the story is a dumpster fire, as I expected. I feel like younger me would have been into it in like a this is garbage but it's my garbage and I'm like a silly teen sort of way, of like when I was younger, you know, and I'd watched the movie for the first time and stuff, you know, I grew up hearing the soundtrack without really knowing the lyrics or whatever. I did ship Christine and the Phantom and stuff. You know, and I almost felt that way again, I'll be honest, watching the 25th anniversary edition. The characters were just performed so well, and like their bond and micro expressions and everything felt so real that I almost did want to ship them, except you know, you remember of like, yeah, the Phantom is a murderer and shit and stuff, and they would not be healthy as a couple. That's like the whole point of the original story and whatever. So what was I going to say? So yeah, the plot is bad. The character assassinated. I hate it. I mean, I'm glad they tried to do something more with Meg, but just the direction of everything was just like and stuff. I mean, the idea of them having a kid also feels like a fanfic trope of like, oh, your OTP has a kid now and stuff, and of course it's like the villain's child and whatever. Music was a hit or miss, mostly misses in my opinion. Like I said, some of them I really liked. I know that I feel like every song in this is probably debatable on whether people either liked it or didn't or whatever, but for most of them I feel like I have to listen to them again to give an opinion, which will not be included in this review. So characters bad, music's plot is garbage, and also kind of confusing and just doesn't really make sense. Performance wise, I mean, I specifically watched the 2010 version, and it also helps that it had like, and it was just the actors actually for Christine the Phantom, not for like anyone else, that was like the same as like the 25th anniversary thing. And that is like the reason I had watched this, so I was already used to their voices, which was kind of nice. I miss them not having like the micro expressions and things here. I'm glad they went even more full out and everything, you know, with the 25th anniversary thing, which, you know, was made like after this one. But vocally they did fantastic as always. Like I said with the Phantom of the Opera review, I still want to see what other musicals they're in. I know one of them's in The Little Mermaid. I forget that there's like Disney musicals that exist like on stage. I want to track that down. Like I said, she gives Disney princess vibes. Not in this, but in Phantom of the Opera, she definitely does. Oh, that's the other thing that bothers me with Christine as well, why she doesn't really feel like the same character. And I know she's older and more mature and whatever, where I described her as like, you know, originally an empathetic character who wears her heart on her sleeve and more importantly just seems so either terrified or happy all the time. She just seems very, even the actress seems very happy. Like, I noticed in the credits she was like so smiley and just happy to be there, and it was absolutely adorable. But then with this, it's like Christine, even though she's not really in danger anymore and there isn't really that many stakes in the story, she doesn't really ever smile or anything, or seem sad, or like she's really feeling anything. It just kills me inside. So I miss that type of stuff. But like vocally, they did great. You know, I will probably never watch this again, not because I hated it that much or anything, but I felt bored and I don't need to subject myself to it again. I don't have any desire to watch. I have heard, however, because this was like the 2010 like original London cast or whatever, that the Australian version, which came afterwards, apparently they changed things around with stuff and it was like better well received, and people do really like that cast as well. But I still hate the story enough where I'm not interested in that as like a way to make it better. I just want nothing to do with Love Never Dies in terms of like watching it. In terms of listening to it, I'm gonna give the soundtrack another try, and you know what, it's like a nice way for me where I still get to hear those actors sing and stuff, but I don't have to subject myself to Love Never Dies again. So yeah, pretty much my thoughts on it. This went kind of like how I expect, like a bit better than I expected. At least I got some cool tracks out of it, and at the end of the day I get to know, hey, there's a Phantom of the Opera song where the Phantom gets to sing heavy metal and instrumental wise and stuff. It's pretty lit. And you know, I've been curious about this for a while. It was probably inevitable that I was gonna give in and watch this eventually, but that's mostly it for me in terms of Phantom musicals. I don't know. There is the other Phantom musical, the like Yentl one. I mentioned that Charles Dance miniseries. I think I might watch it. I think it would be kind of a nice break for me for musicals right now. Though, you know, that one is like a movie adaptation of it, though. There is like a musical stage version of it. Apparently, there's a version of it where Kristen Chenoweth plays Christine, and I have heard some songs from it, not with her, but like, I think I did try to find the musical once to watch it. I think I did actually watch it. I'm hit or miss on some of the songs. I do love the opening song, though. It's so like catchy and fun. But like that version of Christine has such like a higher, is supposed to have like such like a higher voice and stuff and sound more cheerful, that Kristen would like absolutely knock it out of the park, and I desperately want to find that now, even if I can find it as like audio recordings or something. But yeah, I won't review that musical. I kind of need a break from Phantom musicals till next year probably, but I do want to watch the movie version, which is, it's pretty good. It's fun for the most part. Very very different vibe from Andrew Lloyd Webber though. And I also it won't be posted in October, but I want to watch the Muppet movie, the one with Jason Segel. So you might get a review of that and of Muppets Most Wanted, which I haven't seen. One of my friends is pestering me about joining the Friend Halloween movie night thing, so you'll probably get some like Halloween movie reviews. I want to convince the gang to watch Leprechaun with me this year. Hopefully it works. So yeah, that's just some upcoming stuff. But for now, I'm not done with Phantom of the Opera, but I am done with the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. More than I need to for this year. But from what I've learned, I never have to watch Love Never Dies again. My curiosity is satisfied, whatever. I'm kind of done with the movie too. I feel like I've seen it enough times, unless I decide to watch it in French. I feel like I don't need to see it for like a couple more years. I'm good now. 25th anniversary one, however, that is just what we've learned from all this for me, is that is like just the definitive version forever for me of this musical. I mean, if I eventually ever get to see it on stage, or like even checking out clips with other actors or whatever, I'd be fine with it. But that was just so fucking peak that that's going to be the thing I watch every year. But yeah, you probably won't hear anything about this musical again from me. I know there's like so many videos with it. I just had to like get it out of my system and everything. All right, it's 1:30. I'm going to bed. Thanks for listening to me talking about this, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.